And greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I want to thank everybody for their support and the donations here lately. Appreciate it. Remind everybody hit the like, share, and subscribe button for me. And there is a PayPal link in the details section for anybody that does want to share some love. And then, of course, the StreamYard link is there for anybody that wants to join the panel. And we are talking about bonding your own vehicle and or vessels to affect actual title. And so we're going to go over some stuff here in Iowa code as it relates to insurance and registration. Recently, we spoke about the Iowa Administrative Code, validation of vehicle registration as it relates to the certification as false of the motor vehicle operator's lease, because there's no statement of your intent to perform the functions of public office, which requires an oath of office so that you can use that motor vehicle on state business. And while you're using that motor vehicle on state business under an oath, you can enter a program known as the Federal Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program. And when you operate a motor vehicle and license and register it and insure it, when you do so, that driver's license application is also submitting an application for voter registration. So those are some of the things we've gone over in regards to the vehicle. And then last night we talked about the intentionally defective grantor trust. So what we're looking at here is the aspect of purchasing a motor vehicle or an automobile, and instead of registering it to the state, it's going to be, quote, registered to the trust by a bill of sale. So you're going to buy it from the car lot. You're going to have that purchase order. You're going to fill it out. You're going to get the car. Before the state has a title to it, which is going to take about 30 days, you enter your qualification that you sold that automobile to the trust, and then you're going to put in a search for a title on it. In that search for a title on it, there's not going to be a title. It doesn't exist yet. So what you do is you enter it in with your bill of sale to the trust, to the DOT, and they're going to do the search, and when they find out there's no title, they'll issue you a title that you are the bona fide owner through that bill of sale, or the trust is. So it's not going to affect a certificate of title from the state. It's going to affect the DOT qualifying your statement that you have a bill of sale which entitles you of the ownership, and that's that trust bill of sale. So let's take a look at it. Now this is from Iowa, and this is from Zip Bonds. Now this is a place that you can get these surety bonds. And so it's a 1-888-435-4191 number that you can call and question these guys about how to do so. But here we're going to take a look at some basic information on their site. Says what is a bonded title in Iowa? And you can just ask this same question, but instead of in Iowa, you put in your state. An Iowa bonded title is a certificate of title proving you own your vehicle with a surety bond attached. Okay? If you purchase a car in Iowa without receiving a title, in other words, when you go to the car lot and you purchase that, you got that purchase order and you make that purchase, and they qualify you for that purchase, they don't have a title yet. They got the MCO, which is Manufacturer Certificate of Origin, but that's not a title. That's what's handed to the state. And then the state says they have title and issues you a certificate of title. Okay? So if you purchase a car in Iowa without receiving a title or lost it before transferring it to your name, so what's going to happen is you're going to ask for a title through the Department of Transportation, and you're going to ask for that title through the Department of Transportation by giving them the documentation of the purchase by the trust. And as we explained yesterday, the trust is then going to issue a promissory note. That birth certificate is the promissory note with its conditions, its face value, and all of that, that you draw up as the trustee of the trust in the documentation with the bill of sale. And the qualifying indemnification that we've been talking about for the state, in case you, in your travels under that surety bond, get in an accident. Now, as we discussed yesterday, they said 1.5 times the value of the automobile. So if you buy a vehicle or an automobile at $25,000, you can provide a surety, and it's suggested at least 1.5 times that value. So for at least $37,500, but you can write it for more. And the purpose of doing so would be that in case you do get in an accident, you're not just covering the automobile damages, but under equity, also providing, coming with clean hands. And if you want equity, you must first bring equity. So you're going to bring equity to the table and make the offer up front under that same promissory note that if these conditions are met, they can make a claim against that automobile or the title thereof, actually, for this amount, $250,000. I think most people would recognize that as a good deal. Hey, I'm going to get $250,000 if this guy crashes the car in the state, and causes harm, loss, or damage to other vehicles or other people for hospitalization and stuff like that. The surety bond is called a title bond. It may also go by other names, like a certificate of title bond, lost title bond, DMV bond, or defective title bond. Remember the thing we were talking about yesterday, intentionally defective grantor trust, because it's going to have a defective title bond. Why would we call it a defective title bond? Because it's operating under an intentionally defective grantor trust to avoid, not evade, but avoid taxes. The surety bond allows you to claim ownership of your vehicle while protecting parties that could suffer financially as a result. For example, if the valid owner comes forward while the bond is active, they can file a claim to receive compensation for their losses. Okay? If the title is lost before transferring to your name and you purchase that vehicle without a title, because that's what you're doing, folks. When you go to a lot and you purchase that vehicle, you're purchasing it without a title. There is no title to it yet. So if you end up buying a used vehicle that doesn't have a title, and they do this title search because you bought it without receiving a title, and they can't find anybody, they'll issue a title. But if in the meantime, while you own it, just because they didn't find somebody at the time, if somebody comes forward and can prove that they are the actual owner as a valid owner, then they can try to claim that bond. That's why it's important to understand title and chain of title and how it works. Quick takeaways. In Iowa, bonded title is a certificate of title, proving you own your own vehicle with a surety bond attached. The surety bond allows you to claim ownership of your vehicle while protecting parties that could suffer financially as a result. So it's acting just like an insurance policy that will pay out and be liquidated if certain conditions are met. Contact your local DMV to determine if you qualify for a bonded title in Iowa. You don't need to call them and ask them. If you understand what's going on, you just do it. By asking questions, those people will tell you, well, no, you can't do that. We've never done that before. Well, just because you've never done it before doesn't mean that's not the way it's done. It's telling us here clearly, and there's a couple more pages we'll go over to show you how this information correlates and comes together to show you that all they're supposed to do is search those records. If there is no title, and you're making claim to the title first, and there's no valid title yet, and you make that claim, it goes to equity. First in time, first in line. So if you apply for the title first with a valid bill of sale to the trust, who now owns the asset, the state cannot make the same claim because there's a superseding private sale. Iowa title bonds are quickly issued, typically cost around $100, and have a 3-year bond period. Does that sound a lot cheaper than insurance, folks? Iowa title bonds are quickly issued, typically cost around $100, as it said yesterday. Or excuse me, not yesterday. Maybe it's in the later. I read it yesterday. But as we'll see, $100, and for anything above $25,000, it'll cost more. But for a $25,000 vehicle, it's going to cost around $100. How does a bonded title work in Iowa? Contact your local DMV to determine if you qualify for a bonded title. It's already told us what qualifies for a bonded title. There's no valid title, and you're going to make a claim on the purchase of the automobile from that private bill of sale, from yourself to your trust, from the grantor to his trust. In general, if you bought a car in Iowa without a title, and you do it all the time, every brand new car lot, you purchase a car without a title. They do not apply for the title until about 30 days later. All they have is a manufacturer's certificate of origin and have no way of retrieving it because it doesn't exist yet. You can apply for a bonded title. Maybe your title was incorrectly assigned to you. So even if they do have an Iowa certificate of title, it may be that it was incorrectly assigned to you. See, if it's the state that's assigning it, then they're assigning it as a state vehicle to you to use on state business. If they ain't got no business with you and there's no contract, then they can't hold that title and assign it to you because they are not a bona fide purchaser. Or you lost title before it was issued to you. How do you lose a title before it was issued to you? If it was lost before it was issued to you, then something else happened. It either was not created yet or someone else lost it. And because they lost it, they can't provide a proper and valid claim to it, particularly if the state is making the claim of title and can't prove that the one that they supposedly leased it to wasn't on state business. See, there's a lot of problems with the paperwork of the state. Any of these three scenarios could qualify you for a bonded title. How to get a bonded title in Iowa? And this process is going to be about the same in almost every state because it is a process. I want to take a quick minute to remind everybody, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal link down below in the details section for anybody who wants to share some love. It would certainly be appreciated. I do all of this for free in my own free time, but it's always nice to have a little help in the meantime. So, to get a bonded title in Iowa, follow this general process. So, like I said, it's a general process. It can be followed throughout every state. It's a general process, generally applicable, meaning that generally you will qualify, as long as you know what you're doing and know how to disqualify by saying, I'm the owner, the trust is the owner and doesn't want to participate in the motor vehicle theft program. We'll take care of the theft ourselves. That's what that surety bond is going to help cover as well. You can turn that into the state, reporting it as stolen. And as soon as they find it, they can use that bond to pay out on that stolen merchandise. And guess what? You get rewarded for that stolen vehicle that has now been trashed and destroyed. Or whatnot. Understand how this general process works. Apply for bonded title. Complete the application for registration and bonded certificate of title for a vehicle form, and then sign it. So you can get these kind of forms in your state. And you don't even have to use the form. Like I said, you can get the form, look at the language, and draw up your own affidavit making the statement, hey, I got the purchase order from the motor vehicle or from the automobile dealership. Okay, and when I sold my data elements to them in exchange for that automobile, because that's what the purchase order was. See, the purchase order meant that the dealership was buying something, and what they bought was my data elements as a matter of accessing the credit. So when I sold them that data elements so they could get to the credits, and they exchanged to me with that car, I then sold the car for $1 to the trust. The trust, in exchange, writes out a promissory note for $250,000, covering the cost of the motor vehicle and indemnifying through surety any future accidents that might have to be paid out. If you have a lien release from the bank, then you record that lien release with the DOT and then sell that automobile to your private trust. No, James, I do not have any examples. We're just going over the information that's provided and qualifying the data elements that we're reading for how it's supposed to be done, the general process. It says submit a copy of any written document you received at the time of purchase, not 30 days later after the dealership went down and got the title or registered it for a title with the state. At the time of the purchase. No other time does it say. It says at the time of the purchase. This could be a bill of sale or a canceled check. Wait for the Iowa DOT to conduct a title search. So, like I said, when you go to the automobile dealership and you purchase that car and they accept your application, that's the purchase point. That's at the time of purchase. You present that documentation. They're going to look for a title. The system's going to show that there's no title, showing that no one has a claim on it. That bill of sale shows that it belongs to the trust. You are the beneficiary who gets to use it. The promissory note is your evidence of first lien. Okay? So now if the state wants to pull you over alongside the road and claim that you don't have a title, guess what? I do. And it's not in the state's name. The state cannot make that claim. The Iowa DOT will find out if there's an active title record or junking certificate record for your vehicle. If there is not, the DOT will contact the last owner by mail. If it's a brand new automobile, how do they contact the last owner by mail? There is no last owner by mail. It was set to the automobile dealership on consignment as a fleet vehicle that was never purchased for that purpose. The owner may claim the car as their own or waive the claim. And since there is no previous owner, there is no claim to be waived. It's just clearing the record, showing that it is a clean title. If the DOT receives no response, they will move forward with the bonded titling process. So, when the state or the automobile, goes down and registers that vehicle at the DOT for you, they are making that claim for the state. They do not make the claim for you. Does that sound like disassociated interests? Placing interest in the state because they're told they're supposed to? No, you're not supposed to do that unless there's a certain process, and you're not following this general process. You aren't. They are. You aren't. Learn the current value of your vehicle from the DOT. The DOT will send you a bond form with the current value of your vehicle, the required bond amount, and further instructions. You will need this to obtain your surety bond in the next step. This is critical in communicating with the DOT, in expressing the idea that if you run into a problem, say you have an accident, you need to be able to express that with the DOT, that under the bonded title, you're not just bonding it for the value of the vehicle, you're bonding it with indemnification value if you get in an accident. Greetings, John. How you doing tonight?
Good, Keith. Yeah, how about like a traveler's security bond? Does that sound familiar, or am I off base there?
That's what we're talking about. Traveler surety bond. Yeah, you're going to
Oh,
let them know I'm not on state business. I'm a traveler, and this is going to operate the same way as a surety bond, a traveler surety bond, covering both myself, other people that might be involved, and the vehicles for up to $250,000. And you get
okay.
to, and you
Yeah.
get to make those determinations. You get to be part of the consideration. And remember, this is all based on credit. So it's just a matter of extending credit if those conditions line up. If it lines up that I'm traveling down the road, a deer jumps out in front of me, causes me to swerve, I go across the median, hit another car head on, heaven forbid, and cause some kind of damage and injury to other people in the other car and my car and myself, then I should be able to qualify a $250,000 bond. And if that ain't enough, I should be able to write another one. And those are payable upon death. Now, the state can get their credits right away through the credit system. That's what the paper bond is for. It can be entered into the system and converted to $250,000 in credits. If they want more than that, they can come after the estate, but only after I die, upon death. And then the estate can be settled. See, and it's still not a tax issue. It's still just avoiding taxes.
So is that like with strict liability? Is that similar concept or?
Yep. Yep. And you're just going to learn. Remember, we did the use of the matrix under the health and welfare and the life insurance programs. And what it is just a bunch of contract terms and conditions. That's all you got to do is learn these contract terms and conditions, make them very simple contracts for yourself, and be able to qualify the bonding system. And that's a man is bonded by his words. Understand the truth and put the truth forward. The state has no claim. I don't have an oath of office. I can't write a statement of my intent to use the automobile as pledged surety property as a motor vehicle on state business in the performance of the function of the public office because I don't have an oath of office. I don't have an intent to fill an office. And therefore, I can't make that statement. I can't do things on state business. I'm not a political subdivision. I've not been elected to a political office in a political subdivision. This is for private use, period. Get an Iowa title bond. Buy a title bond from a reputable surety provider like Zip Bonds. Your bond value should be 1.5 times the current value of your vehicle at minimum. Like I said, if you've got a vehicle for $50,000, you should make it for $75,000 minimum. I urge 250 or more, simply because of those accidents. Once you get your bond signed by you and your surety, print it and submit it to the DOT's Office of Vehicle and Motor Carrier Services. You know what a motor carrier is, don't you? That's on like postal service. Are you a common carrier, a contract postal unit? Uh-huh. That's the presumption when you get that driver's license, folks. 6, send a bond receipt and letter to DOT, Bureau of Investigations and Identity Protection. Now, the Department of Transportation Bureau of Investigations is relatively and relevantly close to the Federal Bureau of Investigations and the State Bureau of Investigation. And the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, is the one that has the Interstate Identification Index. And it's the state's Bureau of Investigation for the identity protection of the state assigned person under Social Security. The letter should authorize the country treasurer to issue you a title. If the investigator reviews your paperwork and approves it, the DOT will send you an approval letter. You don't need a DOT number. You have a VIN number that is now registered with a private trust, and it can still be used for vehicle theft. Once it's been thieved, you can still use that VIN number to locate it. There's nothing wrong with that VIN number. There's nothing wrong with the system. It is how you are applying it and how it's supposed to be applied. Once that trust purchases that automobile, it has a VIN number, and that is the identifying mark. Now you put a license plate on there that says Betty Sue. Most guys that are in love with their automobiles name their automobiles. Just like many farmers, many small-time community agriculture people will name their farm animals. Same thing. You name your property. Then, when they name their farm animals, they earmark them with a little tag with a number. Same thing. 7, take the approval letter to the county treasurer. The last step is filling out a bonded title certificate application, paying applicable fees, and registering your vehicle. You must hold your bond for 3 years. Once the bond expires, there's no further requirement. Now, what you're doing when you're registering this is you're actually giving notice to the county that you have a valid purpose on the private side of things that gives you a safe harbor exception to doing state business. You're not required to have a driver's license, registration, and insurance on state business. So the registration will show that it's for the private trust, for family affairs, because the trust has no income. Again, we spoke about this yesterday. If you've got private assets purchased by that trust, don't use them for income, and there's no record of income, and they can't use that against you. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. If you have a trust and it sits there in that trust with no commercial activity, then your word is your bond. I ain't never used it for business. You got record that I used it for business? Do you have somebody else that was spying me and said I was doing business but can't provide any paperwork because it only looked like I might be performing the similar functions? See, it's the paperwork that follows up with it that validates everything. So if the state doesn't have title to it yet, you can make the claim for a valid title first because ain't nobody else purchased it. You are the first bona fide purchaser. In that, you sold it privately to a private trust. Now there's a private bill of sale that supersedes any other public purchase. And your purchase as a bona fide purchaser to begin with, that purchase order is evidence that you sold something to the dealership. Remember our purchase order. Purchase order means the buyer of something. The buyer gives the purchase order to the seller. So if the automobile dealership gave you a purchase order for a car, what is it you sold them in exchange for that car? Then you turn around and sell it outright to the trust for $1. The trust writes a promissory note for $250,000, and you're good to go. You've got a bill of sale, and that's all it takes. It says, how much does a bonded title cost? Our title bonds are quickly issued, typically cost around $100 and have a 3-year bond period. If your vehicle is valued at over $25,000, the cost may be slightly higher. After the bond expires, there is no requirement for the bond. You will be eligible for a standard certificate of title. You might be eligible if you're on state business. But if you're not, then you reissue under the same conditions with the new market value of having 3 years of depreciation. Does that make sense, John?
Yeah. Yep, that makes sense.
Okay, let's go on to the next one. Go ahead.
You could, put them on notice too. Like, tell them that you're an operator, not a driver, or that you'll be using this automobile, for traveling, moving, and conveying. Tell them that too.
Correct. Yeah, I'll be using it for my own private intent. Okay, so the next one is the Iowa bond and title process from Surety Bond Professionals, your bond partner. It says Surety Bond Professionals is a family-owned, excuse me, and operated bonding agency with over 30 years of experience. With access to a broad range of surety markets, our expert agents are ready to assist with all of your Iowa title bond needs. Learn more about the Iowa title bonding process below. And again, got a little thing here. You can click and call them, or it's got a little thing to apply. An Iowa bonded title allows you to insure, register, or transfer ownership of a vehicle you own, but don't have a valid certificate of title for. So again, if you apply for that title first before the state does, then the search happens before the state gets to search. And so when they do that search, and it says there's no valid title, what happens then? Well, upon your directive, they create a title. So now the creation of the title is based on your directive, not the state's. That's the only thing the state makes a claim to, is that it was created because they found out there was no valid title under the Federal Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program. It's the only reason. You must purchase one. Go ahead.
There's no MSO either. Isn't that a myth, Keith?
No, the dealership has the MSO, but they send it on to the state. So then the state uses the MSO to look for a title. Well, if the title's already been created, then the state doesn't have a claim with that MCO. They're supposed to mail that MCO to the one that has the valid title. Instead, they take the MCO, microfilm it, destroy it, and say that they have title. You can't do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's partially a myth that it doesn't always exist. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it exists because it comes with the automobile. It's just that what happens to it after it hits the automobile dealership. And that's not supposed to go to anybody but the purchaser. The state did not purchase it. The dealership is not supposed to be sending that MCO to the state. The Iowa title bond is your guarantee that you are the vehicle's rightful owner. The Iowa title bond is your guarantee that you are the vehicle's rightful owner, not the certificate of title. Pay attention. It indemnifies the Iowa Department of Transportation against liability if it's determined during the time that the bond is enforced that you are not the vehicle's rightful owner and should have not been issued a bonded title. So I have to question, and I will, of course, does that mean that the certificate of title also indemnifies the Iowa Department of Transportation? And if so, does it indemnify you? See, if you're the one that's issuing it, if you're the one that issues the indemnification, isn't there equal consideration for return indemnification? But if it's the state that's sending it, what about the indemnification for you? Isn't that the problem? Isn't that why people are getting pulled over and sent to court and having to pay all these fines? Shouldn't they be the ones that are indemnified? Aren't they the actual bona fide purchaser? Additionally, the bond ensures that the vehicle's true owner or lien holder see, the state holding that motor vehicle title supposedly is claiming they have a lien on your automobile. How? What is their consideration in that automobile other than the Federal Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Act? None. Will be compensated for any financial loss resulting from you having been issued a bonded title. So if you are the vehicle's true owner and you are the lien holder then because you hold the title, the state cannot be compensated for financial loss from you having been issued a bonded title. It cuts off the state from being able to make that financial loss claim. They suffered no loss, therefore they cannot make a claim through the state for any court, for any reason, unless there is in fact a suffering of a loss as a title holder. If they don't hold the title, they can't make that claim of loss. Who is eligible for a bonded title? Most people seek a bonded title because they were not given a valid, properly assigned certificate of title at the time they purchased a vehicle in a private sale. Most people seek a bonded title because they were not given a valid, properly assigned certificate of title at the time they purchased, because there isn't one on new vehicles. And if you are buying it on a private sale from another individual, and this is where I tell you, guys, this is how it works. This is how it works, guys. Pay attention. Because when I got pulled over 8 years ago, and they took that truck, and they towed it, and they impounded it, I had a bill of sale. That's it. I didn't know exactly what to do with it at the time. That was my failure. But my success was in realizing the fact that if it was a private sale and nobody transferred the title, I understood at that time that he couldn't transfer that title because he couldn't properly assign me because he wasn't a trustee. He wasn't a principal. The business was. And that business couldn't assign me under his business as a new vehicle owner. He couldn't pass that title. So when they pulled me over and they did that title search and found out I wasn't the true owner and that he was, they still towed it. But the problem, the thing was, the nice thing was that all I did was go back to him and say, hey, man, since you got title to that truck and they towed it, you are the real owner still. All you have to do is go down and make that claim, and they have to give it to you. They do not have a claim against you. They are making a claim against me, and they took that vehicle as if though I owned it, which I do through a private bill of sale, which they wouldn't acknowledge because I didn't do the general process and send it to the DOT. I understand that better now. It takes a little research. But in effect, what happened was he went down, told them, hey, you towed my truck. They said, well, what truck is it? And so he showed them the title. They said, oh. They had to give him his truck back. And of course, consequently, since it was his truck, and he did in fact recognize the bill of sale himself, he gave it back to me. And I turned around. I'd hop my happy little ass in there, And anytime we had to go back down to court for a hearing, I would travel my happy ass in that truck, pull right up in that parking lot with private property placards on that truck, and go to court. Understand how this works. It's the paperwork they're after. And when you can prove the paperwork, they have to give up the property if they don't have record or entitlement to it. So let's take a look. It says, most people seek a bonded title because they were not given a valid title at purchase, properly assigned certificate of title at the time they purchased a vehicle in a private sale. Or they may have received a valid title certificate that was lost or stolen before the vehicle could be registered to the new owner. Iowa doesn't issue bonded titles for junk vehicles that are more than 25 years old. So if you purchase a vehicle that's more than 25 years old, then how is the state going to be able to make a claim on something that doesn't exist? And see, the junk vehicle thing here, just so everybody understands, and you can do your research on this and find out that it goes to the market value, because after 25 years, it doesn't hold its market value anymore. So it's considered a junk vehicle. So that value is gone. But what about the surety value for still traveling down the road and getting into an accident and being able to indemnify other people for $250,000 so that they can take care of the medical expenses? See, they have to be able to leave those considerations in there, and you have to be able to include them in there by knowledge of them. You have to be able to understand how to cover your ass. Your local DMV can tell you whether you meet the eligibility criteria for a bonded title. We've read that the only criteria we need is that at the time of the purchase, we didn't receive a valid title. So rather than play around games and asking questions of where it might be, we're just going to have them do a search. First and foremost, immediately, as soon as possible, before anybody else gets a chance. When they come back and find there's no valid title, they have to issue a title. If they come back and find out that there is a title, it proves that the person that owned it prior wasn't able to assign it. He's not in the capacity to sign it on state business. It's a private sale. How do I get a bonded title? Complete an application for registration and bonded certificate of title for a vehicle and submit it along with any documents supporting your claim, such as bill of sale, to the DOT. Office of Vehicle and Motor Carrier Services in Des Moines. The DOT will conduct a title search of Iowa records. If a prior owner of record is found, the DOT will notify that party and request a waiver of further claim. So like in my situation, the guy that sold me the truck, he would make a waiver of further claim because he would be able to provide a private bill of sale saying that he sold it and doesn't have a claim. Therefore, it would release all other claims, and they would issue a title to me. Again, not to the state. If there is no response or DOT receives a waiver within 10 days, your application will continue to be processed. DOT will send you a bond form and instruction to purchase a 3-year Iowa title bond, which will be 1.5 times the current value, the vehicle's current value, as determined by DOT. So they're going to send you a bond form for 1.5 times the value. You can attach your own birth certificate in bond form with an indemnification statement for $250,000 for that indemnification purpose of other people involved in accidents. You must then purchase the necessary Iowa title bond and submit it to DOT's Bureau of Investigations and Identity Protection. An investigator will review your paperwork. If it's approved, the DOT will send you a receipt for the bond, an approval letter for the county treasurer. Okay? So it's important to get that approval letter, so when you take it down to the county treasurer to register it, it will be registered under a private bill of sale showing private ownership and not state ownership, traveling at your pleasure and not on state business. Would you happen to have any Grey Poupon, John? What do you think?
Yeah, don't get the state involved. I mean, right at the inception, they are right. I mean, that's the problem. Right.
Well, yeah,
That's why we should do like a private purchase. Or, I mean, direct manufacturer purchase, which was an old idea I have, but I don't know if it's
right.
still
A
good
direct
idea.
manufacturer custom order. Direct manufacturer custom order. 4 very easy words. It's direct because you're directing it. It's to the manufacturer, and it's from the customer, and it's customized. It's not within the normal limits. Order, an order to pay, not a promise. Informed use of credit, not a deferment of a debt to be paid at a later time. That's what the promissory note is for the bonding. In case it needs to be done, in case you get in an accident, you have a surety bond as a promissory note from the trust. As we explained yesterday, you purchased it or you sold it to the trust wrote up a surety bond or a promissory bond. You will take the letter to the county treasurer's office, fill out an application for a bonded title certificate, and register your title. Now, just because it's registered with the state doesn't mean that it's registered on state business. This here is registering it for that motor vehicle identity theft prevention by the identification of the customer, the trust. If DOT does not approve your paperwork, you can still get a bonded title, but it will be suspended until you correct the problems identified by the investigator. Our title bond claims paid. If someone comes forward and claims ownership of the vehicle within 3 years that your Iowa title bond is enforced and that claim is found to be valid, you may be liable for monetary damages. The surety bond company will pay the claim up to the full amount of the bond. However, as the bond's principal, you are legally obligated to compensate the injured party. So you must reimburse the surety company in full. This is where the promissory note from the trust comes in. If they're going to issue you a surety bond for such situations of an invalid title or something for monetary damages, and then they're going to say you are legally obligated to compensate the injured party, you get one of two things to use: credit, informed use of credit, or a promissory note. It's telling you promissory note, and you can most certainly do that, but you can also issue credit. Hey, here are the credits. There you go. They come from the estate. They're in credit form, not material form, so you can have them. And then upon death, you can enter into the estate and detract those credits from the settlement in probate as part of the paying off settlers in probate, or paying off creditors with liens in probate. So effectively, it would create a lien for the credits. That's all. Not for your material belongings, but for monetary damages. Notice it says monetary damages. It doesn't say that you have to give them the car. It's monetary damages. It means you keep the car. That's the way I read it. If there are no valid claims during the bonds, if there are no valid claims during the bond's 3-year term, you will be able to exchange your bonded title for a standard certificate of title. You don't want a standard certificate of title. That standard certificate of title is going to say state of Iowa owns that. You don't want the standard one. You want it to be custom. You want it to remain custom. Most Iowa title bonds are sold for a flat fee that often is as little as $100, with minimal to no underwriting by the bonding company. Interesting, huh? And that's why I say, John, and anybody else, that you have to be able to incorporate your own underwriting in there to be able to include for accidents and hospital bills and things like that. You have to understand that stuff so you can write that in yourself. That's part of being taking care of your due diligence and covering your ass. Because if you do this and you don't cover your ass, you can destroy your estate and they can come after all the property for what you don't cover through a credit device. So let's take a look at the last one. The last one I got pulled up is Iowa Department of Natural Resources, because we are in fact talking about bonding your own vehicles and or vessels, such as ski-doos and boats and houseboats, just like you would do the same thing for an automobile and a motorcycle. On watercraft, you can do the same thing, but it's done through the DNR. Okay, when you register your crafts, you usually go down to the city clerk. When you register your motor vehicle, you go to the county clerk. And there's a distinct difference. Sometimes you might go to the county clerk, but when you go to the county clerk to register your vessel, that's a county clerk and not the county treasurer. The county treasurer works for the DOT. The county clerk works for general business matters. And the Iowa Department of Natural Resources here would be the ones that we register vessels, marine vessels with. And Philip Fairweather's on it. It should say engine vehicle, not motor vehicle. So the motor, Tesla is a motor vehicle. Electronic cars are motor vehicles. If it's using gas, which is an explosive element, it is an automobile with an engine. It is a bike with an engine. Okay, very distinct differences. So anyway, it says, let me blow this up a little bit so we can get a better read on this. It says registering your vehicle or vessel in Iowa without a registration and or title. Now, if there's a statement like that says you can do that, then why are people insisting that you have to have a title to register? You understand where I get my questions from, folks. I question everybody because everybody's saying something different. Here it says you can register your vehicle or vessel in Iowa without a registration and or title. You can still accomplish it. How so? Iowa law requires documentation in order to transfer the registration and or title of boat, snowmobile, or OHV into your name as the new owner. If you do not have all the documentation required, you will need to go through what is called the bonding process. Seems to me, folks, the only document you need then is that private bill of sale. Documentation required for transferring ownership includes a proof of purchase document, registration, and or title. So if I sell it to the trust, it is now titled in the trust name. That's where the title comes from. The trust name is a title. The Keith Lord and Little Estate Trust. It's in all caps. It's a title. Now that motor vehicle or automobile is titled because it has a private purchase or sale by the entitlement holder, so titled Keith Lord and Little Estate Trust. Here's the private bill of sale. What is the bonding process? Get out of there. What is the bonding? I don't know why it's doing that. What is the bonding process? If your vehicle or vessel cannot be titled or registered by your county recorder because you do not have the proper registration and or title documents, you must first fill out Form 5420855, request form for bonded title or registration. And again, you do not have to use the forms. You can just simply write them a letter requesting it. They might want to send you that form, but again, you just let them know that, no, I'm not going to fill out that form. That's an official document on state business. This is not state business. This is private. This is private communications. We will not be using any official forms. It does not say official forms. It says includes a proof of purchase document, registration, and or title. I have provided that. Upon receipt of a completed form, the Iowa DNR will review and investigate the information you provide to determine if you can register your vehicle vessel and what process you would need to go through to legally transfer ownership into your name. If you've already got proof of purchase as a private bill of sale, that is all you need. I don't care how much they want to review and investigate the information you provide to determine if you can register your vehicle or vessel and what process you will need to go through to legally transfer ownership into your name. It's already been transferred. Ain't nothing you can do about it. You can't tell me I can't transfer it. You're not my boss. You weren't involved in the private sale. You have no investment. You have no interest. You have no purchase price. You have no purchase power. The initial investigation will take a minimum of 12 weeks to complete. Note, Iowa law requires the seller give the buyer, at the time of purchase, written documentation of ownership, such as a bill of sale and registration and or title signed over to the buyer. Written documentation of ownership, such as a bill of sale and, notice how they capitalize, and registration and or title signed over to the buyer. Remember our withdrawal of owner or owner withdrawal from program? You are not required to register unless you are on state business. If you have not already contacted the seller, please contact the seller of the vehicle and ask them to comply with requirement before submitting the request form. Ask them to comply. I don't know where everybody seems to think that this is law and they have to comply according to this or that or what this guy said and his authority says. I don't give a damn. The words say otherwise. It says ask them to comply. If you do not have the last registration and or title, the first step in moving forward with transferring your vehicle or vessel into your name is to submit the bond request form and supporting documents to the Iowa DNR. You can submit this form by email, mail, or fax as instructed on the request form. To avoid processing delays, please submit the following required supporting documents along with your request form. A copy of any written document received at the time the vehicle was acquired, such as a bill of sale or canceled check. Same thing as a vehicle. Photos of the front, back, one side, registration number, and the manufacturer's ID number, serial number, VN, or HIN. You guys understanding? Photos of the front, back, one side, registration number, vehicle number, whatever. Please refer to the sections below should you have questions about required supporting documents. After your request form is submitted, once the request form has been submitted, the Iowa DNR will investigate the vehicle or vessel registration history and review supporting documents to determine the current registration status as of the vehicle or vessel you are trying to register. As part of the investigation, the Iowa DNR may also notify the last registered owner of the request for bonded title and/or registration. Once the investigation is complete, the Iowa DNR will determine the steps you need to complete to get the vehicle or vessel registered and/or titled in your name. This is the part where we're going to have a problem with rebutting, is because they're going to try to tell you you have to register through the state and get that certificate of title in the state's name. No, or in your name. No, it's the trust name. It's already been sold to the trust. You will have to talk to the trustee. Let me go get him. Hello. Don't try to play games with me. I have no nexus with the state. You can't tell me just because you work for the state that I have to pledge my property to the state so you can recognize it for a motor vehicle theft prevention program. Excuse me, I'll just withdraw from the program. I'll keep it protected myself. Approximately 12 weeks later, you will be notified that one or more of the following action steps may be required as a result of the investigation in order for you to be approved to transfer ownership of your vessel, of your vehicle or vessel. No, in order for you to be approved to transfer ownership of your vehicle or vessel. That is not a public issue. That is a private right. A private bill of sale says it was already done. Ain't nothing you can do about it. Only thing you can do about it is try to rebut that I couldn't do it and say that I have to do it through the state. Again, no state interest. Show me the state interest that they were involved in this private sale. You may be required to get an inspection done by a conservation officer or another certified peace officer. You may need to complete an affidavit form. I'm not going to do anything but affidavit form. It's in affidavit form when I give you a private notice. That's why I say I'm not going to use your form. Affidavit supersedes your form. Your form is asking me to defer to certain grammar that I'm not going to defer to, and you won't allow me to change on your form because you say, well, you can't do that. The hell I can't. You may be required to purchase a surety bond to cover 1.5 times the determined current value of the vehicle or vessel. Same thing with the motor vehicle. We find is the same thing with DNR. Okay? If this is needed, a bond form will be sent to you showing the current value of the vehicle or vessel and the amount of bond needed. And you can exceed it. You can give them more, noticing them that this is for any future accidents. In 3 years, if you don't use that because you never got in an accident, you renew it for the same intent. You don't get registered for a standard certificate of title. You renew the surety for its original intent, the fair market value of the motor vehicle, and any accidents you might involve yourself in. The bond form will include instructions for the completion and return to Iowa DNR. Fees to obtain a surety bond through a bonding company are set by the surety company. Please refer to the bonding company for the fee to obtain your surety bond. If a bond is needed, the Iowa DNR will hold the bond for 3 years, after which time the bond will expire, and there is no requirement for a bond. So if there's no requirement for a bond, why are they telling you consistently you are required to have insurance? I'm not saying you're required. I'm saying it's a good idea to renew it at that price for $100 for another 3 years so you can indemnify yourself in equal consideration while at the same time still indemnifying the state through the DOT or the DNR. It's equal consideration. Hold harmless, indemnify both ways. You're not required to, but it's a good idea, particularly when you find a really cheap way to do it like this. Upon review of the completed paperwork and any additional steps requested above, you will be notified in writing of your approval to obtain a title and registration through your county recorder's office. You will use your approval letter in lieu of a signed title and or registration by the seller to transfer your vehicle or vessel into your name. You will use your approval letter in lieu of a signed title. Sounds fair to me. And or registration by the seller to transfer your vehicle and vessel into your name. Note, there may be some instances that the DNR cannot approve the transfer of ownership of your vehicle vessel. If we cannot approve transfer, you will be notified in writing after the investigation, and there is an active lien on the vessel. So that's the only time they cannot approve transfer is if there's a lien on the vessel. So when you purchase a brand new vehicle and there's no lien on it yet, guess what? I wanted to take a look at these because it says frequently asked questions. Buyer beware before you buy. Can I bond in Iowa if I live in another state? Only have a bill of sale? Only have the title or registration? Having trouble obtaining title or registration? Late registered owner is deceased. Vehicle vessel still has an open lien on it. Last registered owner claims ownership. Found a vehicle or vessel and want to keep it. How much does the bonding process cost? And what is a written document of ownership? So I don't know what you guys think, but for me, it seems pretty clear that I just need to do some certain things in certain transactions to make sure that there's a bill of sale, a private bill of sale generated, so that I can give notice of that private bill of sale and indemnify people if they want to make a false claim. And then, of course, insure those that make valid claims. The more I read this stuff, the more I understand the way that system is supposed to work for us if we know how to use it. But again, there's the problem. We've been taught in a public education system that doesn't teach us how to use this. We run on the presumption that the driving instructor at school teaches us that we got to have a license, and never once teaches us about the right to travel. And then when we turn 18 and we hear about this right to travel and we get confused and pissed and start asserting that right to travel, we get shot and killed. There's a lot of due diligence you have to do in this stuff, and I urge you to start doing your research and learning this stuff. What do you think, John? Am I on track here? Do I sound like I'm a lunatic? Does what I read, triplicate in all three of those sites, seem to make sense to you in relations to that intentionally defective grantor trust we spoke about yesterday, protecting the assets?
Yeah, this all lines right up. I mean, the grantor is supposed to be the one that is ultimately like responsible for, the arrangement, the proper trustees and all that. I mean, if there's no true grantor from the beginning, then we're screwed later. So.
Right, the grantor is going to act as the principal. The trustee is going to act as, and this is during your lifetime, that revocable trust. So the grantor is going to be the principal. That's yourself. The trustee is going to be the agent. That's yourself. The beneficiary is going to be the one using the property in its possession. That's yourself. When you understand how this trust works and how you contract with yourself through those private bills of sale and purchase agreements, you're acquiring property in the wrong capacity as a grantor, and therefore you need to put it in a trust to protect it. Otherwise, as a grantor, they'll come after you as a principal because there's no trustee to go after. When you place it in a trust, now it's got a trustee, but guess what? The trustee is still a fictional person. So they still only go after the estate, which is the credit side, upon death. They can't really interfere with your right of life, liberty, and happiness while you're alive by coming after your estate. They're not supposed to. They do, but they're not supposed to. Once you understand this stuff and can implement those contract terms and conditions in your private communications, they effectively maneuver the private contract into the public so they stay out of your private business. You make them aware of those certain contract terms and conditions that qualify certain indemnifications. Listen, the state of Iowa can't make a claim against this automobile because I've already indemnified the Department of Transportation. So the DMV can't come after me and say, well, you got to register that vehicle. It is registered. It's just not registered the way you want it to. And you tell me I have to register it on state business is bullshit, because I don't have an oath of office, and I can't write a handwritten statement of my intent to perform at least 50% of the use of that motor vehicle as a surety for the property pledged to conduct or perform the functions of public office. I'm not qualified. I don't have an oath. Therefore, I can't take upon a license, and I can't register it on state business. I'm going to have to withdraw from that program. People have a hard time understanding English, and I think it's pretty easy once you unlearn what you've been taught and relearn concise English. It's a big issue. I see we got Philip Fairweather down there. Got Focus. Focus says the first owner is the one you need to go to the state. You will get the MSO, and yes, there is a lien on it, even after the A loan was paid. Right, but see, the MSO, when we file for a title on a new purchase, that lien goes to the MSO, the MCO. That's where the lien is. It's the manufacturer's certificate of origin, saying that if anybody owes anybody anything, it's the manufacturer, because it went to the car lot on consignment. The car lot can make some kind of claim on the MCO as a consignment deal, but the actual first lien goes to the manufacturer. Now, the manufacturer may have a contract with the state, but he can't have a contract with me other than the purchase through the consignment, and that is not on state business. And that's using private data elements and converting them for that on-state business shit. And people have gotten so used to it that they don't understand it. They're just doing it as a normal course of business, when there's another normal course of business that should be instituted, and it's just through your knowledge. You make the claim on the title first at purchase. Soon as you get that fucking credit application approved or whatever, as soon as they approve it, DOT, is there a title? Title search. No title? I need to apply for that title under the trust name. Here's the private bill of sale. Here's a birth certificate. Here's the indemnification statement. So anyway, that brings us to the end of our stream for tonight on the bonding vehicles and vessels and how it actually occurs according to the way Iowa states it. And so I'm hoping everybody will do your due diligence and look up bonding process in your own state for that certificate of title. So you can do it without having to qualify on state business, performance of functions of public office. And that is that private bill of sale. It's not a public sale, is it? They didn't sell it to a public officer. They didn't sell it to a public official. They didn't sell it to a public agent. You used a public ID as if though you were a public official. And that's the problem. You need to understand that identification is the thing that's killing you. Anything on the way out, John?
It just goes right into all their assumptions, including DMV when you get your driver's license. They don't even give you a vision test. They assume you have good vision. Some
Oh,
people
really?
don't. Well, yeah, in my state, they don't care if you can see or not. Just take the picture and give them money.
Oh, we've always had to take a vision test here in Iowa.
No, not here.
All right. Well, with that, folks, we come to the end of our show. I want to remind everybody, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to share some love. And you guys know me. I appreciate your support. I love you. I really do. But I don't give a rat's ass if you don't love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you and have a good night. We'll see everybody next time. Bye now.